And good morning. Welcome inside the Bottom Line. Glad to have you here on a Tuesday morning, cold Tuesday morning. 33 degrees is what I have here at our studios. I think it might hit 60 today.
That's going to hit 100 here in a minute.
Easy, big fella. Easy. Remember your blood pressure. Remember, we'll be exploring all of your possibilities and how this should have worked out with the national championship in football.
Do your job. Do what you say you're going to do.
What I do is I just bring up points from both sides, and I think you know who picked what the Final Four would be and in what order they would be. And I can explain that.
And that was wonderful because it brought a lot of clarity to that, you know what I'm saying, that viewpoint.
And I listened to somebody, I think he was formerly a coach at UCLA in football. Rick Neuheisel, wasn't he at UCLA?
Yeah.
He was on yesterday on Dan Patrick.
I think he was at Colorado too, wasn't he? Before that,
he may have. And I was just listening to him, and he said the biggest thing that people have to remember, and this is it. This is entirely it. The presidents, athletic directors, they all agreed to the way they wanted this done. Till it affects you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
And the whole premise behind this, and it's all subjective. There's nothing objective about it. And the reason it couldn't be objective is if you wanted conference champions, there was no way to do it when you had 5 and only 4 slots. So that went out the window. So what they came up with is we want what we feel like. Those people in that committee, what we feel like are the top 4 teams that are remaining.
Yeah.
Now, I know that they took other things into consideration.
They should. There needs to be metrics. Absolutely.
And I'm telling you what, the way I think it came down. This is exactly the way that I think it came down. They said, okay, we've got to put Michigan in because they've been as strong as anybody, stronger than anybody, okay? We got to put Washington in for the same reason. Then came the mud, okay? And they said, okay, we see that we've got Florida State, we've got Texas, we've got Ohio State, we've got Alabama. Of those folks that are left that we've got to do something with. They knew that they had to take, okay, this is just my opinion, they knew they had to take the SEC champion because the world would catch fire if they didn't.
Well, I mean,
okay, so there's 3 or 4. There's 3 or 4. And then they said, and look, okay, we got to look at head-to-head, and this is where I came up with my 4. Texas beat Alabama in head-to-head, so we got to put Texas in there, and we got to put them above Alabama. Now, did Florida State get the shaft a little bit? Absolutely they did, but they were not, in my opinion, not one of the top 4 teams based on the other metrics that were there. And I read a post yesterday that somebody put on, and they analyzed every team and every opponent and on and on and on. There's no way to come to a consensus about this. Now, here's the only thing that will maybe clear up some of this, okay, would be if it holds chalk. Okay, when I say if it holds chalk, that means Michigan wins the first round. Okay. Washington wins the first round because they're the number 1 and number 2. Then they could say, well, we got it right. And then the third one would be if Georgia beats Florida State. That's their matchup. And that'll be an obliviation right there.
One of those 3 are likely to happen.
Which one do you think is going to happen?
The latter.
You think Michigan? I think Michigan wins it all. I think it's Michigan and Texas in the finals.
Yeah, okay.
That's just me.
No.
That's just me.
I get it. And that's okay. I mean, listen, we're talking sports here. There's people starving in other parts of the world.
We're not
here in the U.S.
We're not breaking any new news here.
No, I'm not. But this is my whole issue with everything that's going on. Okay, the social experiment last year failed miserably. Mm-hmm. Okay, there weren't 4 great teams let's just say 5 or 6 great teams last year. All right, there were 2. Who was the national champion last year?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. So
I want to look some things up because you brought that up.
Think about this. All right.
Okay.
Who was the national champion last year?
Georgia.
Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you they kind of get they went against what they did last year, and then the experiment with Cincinnati failed miserably.
The year before,
taking a conference champion that's undefeated, right? Because the smell test didn't work in that. Mm-hmm. Deserving and then going by the criteria, two different things.
Can't do deserving.
Well, let's follow that. All right, let's say you have a great surgeon here in 100-mile radius, and you've got a severe brain tumor. Mm-hmm. All right. So you've had this surgeon for 20 years, all right, that's been helping you along the way as you've had issues. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the world's greatest surgeon, or a better one, out of Johns Hopkins, is available. Mm-hmm. What are you going to say that is better? Better. Mm-hmm. Now that's subjective, isn't it? Mm-hmm. No. People may use that as a reason. They like to throw words out there and really don't know what they mean. That's okay. We all repeat things that we hear. Like playing multiple sports makes you a better athlete. That's not true. That's possible, but it's not true. Okay? And I can go into that later, all right? You go get the best available. That is the criteria. Mm-hmm. I do not disagree with anyone that says Florida State, feels like they got shafted, they feel like they did. I don't disagree with that. But that was not the criteria, okay? Follow me on this. And people say, well, you can't compare apples and oranges and all this. All right, Georgia demolishes Kentucky, all right, a month and a half, 2 months ago now. All right, Kentucky plays who and beats them a couple weeks ago? Louisville. All right. Louisville plays who? Florida State. All right, against a great defense. Florida State does. They're really good. All right. And gets beat. What was it? 10 points. Was it 16-6 or whatever it was? Okay. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of talk about the SEC had a better record against ACC. Well, let's talk about that. All right. Let's talk about that. So you got, these are the pictures I took last night, screenshots. So just starting in the back, Kentucky beats Louisville 38-31. All right, that's an SEC win. Florida State at Florida. Florida State wins 24-15. All right. Clemson, South Carolina. North Carolina beats South Carolina early on. I don't know if South Carolina is really considered a really good SEC team. No. Georgia and Georgia Tech. Okay. Georgia Tech and Mississippi. Ole Miss just demolishes them. I mean, Ole Miss, in my opinion, is a top 6, top 8 team. All right. Texas A&M. Why is that a shock that Miami beat them, Laney?
Nope.
All right. LSU and Florida. Florida State. Back on September. Mm-hmm. All right. Would anybody in America say that Alabama is not 1,000 times better this time than they were back in September when they got beat? How can anybody say that? Milroe's the X factor now. There is no answer for him. There is none. The other night, when it came down to a crucial situation when they still had a lead against Georgia, he rolls out, fakes a toss, gets ready to hit a slant or stop route, sees an opening. So it's a run-pass option, obviously. All right, it's an RPO, but just not doing all the hand faking and stuff like that, all right? Power read run-pass option. And he just cuts it up in 8-9 yards first down. Do you think Michigan's quarterback's going to do that?
All I'm going to say.
Do you think Florida State's quarterback's going to do that?
No.
Do you think Georgia's quarterback's going to do that? Do you think Washington's quarterback's going to do that? Do you think Texas? No. That is the X factor in all of this because the great defenses right now are Texas, Michigan, and Alabama. All right, they're in the top 4. Washington is not. Mm-hmm. If you put Washington against Georgia, Washington gets beat by 50. Okay, people say, "Oh, you don't know that." Well, okay, but I'm just looking at it here. Okay, Georgia is going to beat Florida State like you've never seen anything in your life.
I know.
Okay, that's going
which answers the Florida State question.
It's going to put it to rest. I don't care if it is their second string quarterback, Lane. It doesn't matter.
They're not on the same level.
No, it doesn't. I hate it that they went 12-0. People say, well, it needs to be decided on the field. That's true, but the whole point of them coming up with this formula was we had too much decided on the field, and then people decided not to play or got hurt, and then we ended up with a crap national championship series or game. That's why. So the way they didn't want it is because of the issues they have now with the way they do want it.
Let me give you this, okay? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just going to give you this, okay? This is from the bylaws of the CFP committee. 4 criteria when teams are deemed comparable. Championships won, strength of schedule, head-to-head, comparative outcome of common opponents. Right. Now, here's my thing. Would it have made you feel better if the season ended before these conference championship games, okay? Then what would you have done? Would you have still put Alabama in there too with 1 loss to Texas and left Texas out? I mean, Georgia would have been in. Michigan would have been in. Washington would have been in. But you're still looking for that 4th team.
Then they would have put Florida State in because they could have justified it then to make everybody feel better. But that would not have been the best 4 teams. We still don't have the best 4 teams, in my opinion. I think Georgia is better than Washington. I think Georgia is better than Texas. I think Georgia potentially is better than Alabama, even though Bama beat them. I think Georgia is better than Michigan.
Oh, I think Kirby froze in the headlights. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he why did he get away from his power running game? I think he out-thunk himself. Okay, I mean that's just my opinion.
Well, they did too much early on. We were in that text chain. I think it was me, you, and Steven, and Andrew.
I almost fired off after the first touchdown and say this is going to be bad because Georgia was impressive.
But they are,
and then they got away from it.
But no, I agree. But looking at it from a defensive standpoint, I want someone to come out and pull all those stops out. Show me, just go ahead and show me all the trickery, the misdirection, all these things, because what it does is once the kids have seen it, the players have seen it, they start settling in, and now they know what to expect, but then they can do what they do. So when you don't do that stuff, it becomes very difficult to move the ball in any facet. And you can't do it all game because trickery is by chance, where, other plays are by design and, are for production reasons, right? Trickery is to get ahead, to get an advantage. The problem is you're playing a game and not a series. That's why you can lose a battle but still win the war, all right, because sometimes you show too much. This is The Art of War, all right, and a few other books that, that might help in understanding that I listen to on Audible on how that works. And I said that on the chain. I said, Georgia should not have done this early on. They're showing too much.
Let me ask you this.
It's going to settle them in.
Go back to the same article. Texas is number 11 in strength of schedule.
Yeah.
Alabama's 31.
Sure.
Georgia's 61.
Yeah.
Okay? Georgia, strength of schedule, is lower than Florida State.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I guess
that's what it ended up being. But even it's at 5 or 6 points lower than Florida State's strength of schedule, without their starting quarterback, that matters not. We're talking about Georgia's defense. That's why I said Milroe's the X factor. They have to keep an extra person in the box to spy on him and cannot drop him into coverage. Therefore, he can hit, Boyd or whoever that kid's name is, or the other tight end that they got, they don't utilize a lot that they will in the national championship games. There's so many different combinations now that Milroe is truly a two-way player. This is what they've been looking for the last 20 years or 15 years or 10 years since they started making this transition. A true two-way player that doesn't get hurt.
Let me give you some comments. I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to ask you another big question. Okay? Morning, Richie. Andrew said, we all need to come to the realization that we don't take the SEC champion because of the backlash, but because the SEC champion is always one of the best 4 in the country. I agree with that.
Yes.
Junior, good morning. Milton said, college is not the NFL, no wild cards. If you have a loss in the early season, that's a loss. That's the only time that you can have a loss and maybe recover.
That's
maybe recover.
That's a great point.
Tracy said, preach it 4. FSU's top 12, but not 4. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dylan, UGA is a top 4 team.
They are.
You know,
I mean, I don't. I just,
the only problem I have with that is they didn't take care of it on the field.
Yeah.
And that's where.
But how do we say Washington did when they have played an inflated Oregon ranking team twice and only beat them by 3?
I
They
agree.
beat them at home.
I agree.
And then they beat them by 3 on a neutral field, both or whatever it was, both times.
Yeah. Richie says the
I don't know.
issue in his opinion is the way they applied the metrics. In the end, they probably got it somewhat right, but they still didn't put the 4 best teams in. They used strength of schedule as a metric for FSU, but they did not use it as a metric to choose Liberty over SMU. Liberty's strength of schedule was 133 out of 133. Also, if Bama is better than FSU as a one-loss team, how is Georgia not ranked above FSU? Well, they're there. Now the question is, did the College Football Playoff Committee effectively nail it to the ACC?
Yes.
The only thing I'm going to say, okay, and I'll get back to this, okay. Let me roll on back because I got lost.
ACC did it to themselves too. They did it to themselves.
Jonathan, good morning. My question is, who earned it? FSU earned a shot and were screwed.
They earned. Listen, they earned it, okay, but that's not the criteria.
That's correct.
They earned it through. Jonathan's right. I do not disagree with earning it on the field. The problem is
you don't like earning.
Yeah, no, I do.
It's about feelings.
Oh shit, that's the other flip side of it. It's not right. Well, you know what? You know, this is a great life lesson. I told my boys, I said, this is a great teachable moment, guys. In life, sometimes you deserve things and have earned things that you're not going to get. You're going to get passed over for promotions because the boss may have a cousin or nephew or friend that they want to put in front of you, even though you are this happened to me years ago.
Happens all the time.
Years ago in coaching. I was like, they said, well, you're not mad? I said, no, because it's the way things are in the world. I'm just going to keep my head down and keep focusing, and then one day it'll happen.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct. Can't let one thing.
That was 2 days after.
You can't let that derail you. Richie said, "Agree. It feels like they got punished for things not in their control. I don't think they got punished. I think they were fairly evaluated by the criteria. Okay." And can we stop this narrative that Bama has been dominant? They had to have a miracle play at the end of the game in the middle of the road Auburn team. I agree. They should have never won that game. But they did. So you got to give them that.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to be very clear. It seems that, I'm on the Alabama, because what I'm on is they have had, arguably until Georgia recently, but they've upped the standard for everybody else on how they do things, and it's made other colleges, programs step it up majorly. All right, if you've ever heard Saban, whether on the thing or live like I have, there is a reason that they practice that play. It's called Gravedigger. Okay? He posts him up 5 yards deep in the end zone, Milrose to throw it to the back corner, okay, at about 8 feet in the air. So the ball goes over the pylon about 4 to 6 feet in the air, and the kid posts him up, and he jumps up and catches it. It's no different in that situation than posting somebody up in basketball on the block. You go out a little further than the block, you give him an arm bar, hold the hand up, the guy throws it over. He's not going to get it if the angle's right. Okay? Miracle play, yes. But we can say that, and I'm not disagreeing with Jonathan. What I'm saying is we can say that about a multitude of things. But it's not – there's no such thing as luck. We like to blame that on not understanding why things happen, right, in our lives. There's a thing that says, well, preparation meeting opportunity is the definition of luck. No, that's the definition of continued sustainable success. All right? There's no such thing as luck. We might not like it, and we might not like certain teams and pull it, but I went to East Carolina. I hate everybody because nobody wants us in the league. All right, NC State, Duke, that's fine. I don't care about that. All right. What I'm saying is when you get rid of this is my favorite team thing, and you look at things, which I can do because my team sucks, and I can look at each team. There's no way that I can come to a reasonable conclusion that Washington is better than Georgia. I can't. I can't do it with Michigan. All right, yes, they play in the Big Ten, but How many teams are really in the Big Ten?
Are you saying
how many are really
that
in the Big
if
Ten?
Michigan or Washington win the national championship,
then I'll eat all my. That's fine. I'll eat
no,
all
no,
my
no, no,
worst
no.
sales
But
wrong.
you're saying
No
they
problem.
didn't play the team that they need to play that you thought was better than them, Georgia, because Georgia didn't make it in the four.
Correct. I don't think they played a team all year that – I mean, Oregon is a very talented, wonderful, well-coached team, got great kids. They finished fifth in the SEC.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I get it.
Okay, but because we said Power 5, we give power to conferences that really don't have any.
Yeah, especially now if they only have two teams.
Okay. No, that's right. Power 5. That's a West Coast team. They're not power. Like big is a better word. Mm-hmm. Traditional 5 might be a better word. Not power. The ACC, for a while, 7 games into it, we thought Carolina was going to be on the – no, really.
ACC's struggling to be a Power 5 conference right now.
That's what I'm saying. They got too many teams in the league.
Yeah.
This is the problem when you just start throwing everybody in things, saying, come on, money, come on. Mm-hmm. This is the problem. Everything gets watered down. All of a sudden, it propels a team like NC State that's got a great coach and kids play really hard, 8-string quarterback, all this stuff. It's just you can't. Florida State got punished because there's too many teams in the ACC. It's too watered down.
Let me give you a couple more comments, and I'm going to take a break. Richie said, going to talk about Georgia's defense, but you have to also take into account FSU's defense. They got the job done all year.
Completely agree. Wonderful,
yeah, but it was an ugly win. What was their ugliest win? Florida State.
Yeah.
What was their ugliest win? Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech.
They allowed Georgia Tech to score 30.
Yeah. Well,
over
Georgia
30.
Tech did that to everybody.
I know.
Or most teams. Well, I mean, look at Georgia and Georgia Tech.
Andrew said the 4 teams selected all met the selection criteria listed on the committee's website, so more so than FSU. Everyone at some point is punished because they don't have control. And that's it. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. Yeah. Let's see.
Now, listen, I wanted Florida State to have an opportunity, all right? But in the metrics that they have, you can't sit there and say we earned it. I mean, think of it like this, Lenny. All right? You and I coached our Little League team, and let's say they didn't, but let's say they went 8-0. All right? Okay? Now, we're going to go play against other teams that have more centralized players or more decentralized. They're bringing them in. Like Mountain View and the Ducks in Newton that are very, very good football teams. All right? All right. So we're undefeated. They each have 1 loss, and we're going into a playoff system. Why would we rank our players above those players? Like because we're undefeated? We played a different league. It was measurable. It was nowhere near compared to the Big South.
Juju asked me a question last night, just so I can be completely transparent.
Yeah.
He said, what if it were Clemson that were undefeated and they lost their quarterback that was so much of their offense 2 weeks before the end of the season, and it were the same scenario? I said, I would not be happy about it, but you're not one of the top 4 teams to compete. I look at it, if I put a team in, do I realistically believe they can beat the other 3?
The answer's no.
Okay? No. And that's why Florida State didn't get in. But you still had 2 other teams that could get in and play, okay, that couldn't, was Ohio State and Georgia.
Well, this is the problem I got, too.
Both of those are better than Florida State.
No, I agree, but I think Florida State's better than Washington. That's the problem I got, and I think Georgia's
I only saw them play the one game, so I can't say.
I watched them play this year. I think Penix is wonderful. They do we're talking about SEC defenses here, and then Florida State's defense, who was, I believe, Richie said to his point. That is different, like drastically different.
That's why we play the game.
Drastically.
Todd said, either way, I feel like it was a nail in the ACC coffin for football. It is absolutely. To a point, and they need to because they've tried to be a basketball conference. Andrew said, Alabama's much better than FSU, no question. Georgia should have been ranked over FSU, correct. Andrew said, thank you for. We've been trying to get that point across for 2 days now. It's not the FSU didn't earn it. It's the fact that they didn't meet the criteria. And that's what I've said over and over.
I believe they earned it on the field. The problem is it's
Mike,
not the criteria.
Morning, Mike. Mike Self says, and this is so true, ACC will have a hard time playing in a national championship next year because the Big Ten and SEC have most of the top teams from the massive expansion.
Yeah, he's right.
Milton said, let's cut the season to 8 and then have a March Madness. I don't want to see that. No.
God,
Todd said, as Patrick Swayze said in Roadhouse, opinions vary. Andrew said, okay, so Bama beat Auburn on a miracle play. Let's not forget it. Clemson didn't give away a 2-score lead late against Florida State. Then Florida State isn't in the conversation either. I agree. Chad said next year we will also not be happy when 5 or 6 SE teams make the playoffs based on strength of schedule, and it's coming.
Was that Chad Mullen? That's
it's
a
coming.
Great point. That's a great point.
Joe said only thing that wins with present college football is Hybrid Bowl. Facts and certainty no longer have a home. My wife said, Coach Dion said it best, no one is going to do anything against Saban. If there's a chance in heck, they're going to jump Alabama over everyone. But the reason is because they normally do deserve that. Whether you want to admit it, I mean, I don't like admitting it, but most of the time they do. Andrew said, Kim, that's because their resume for the last 20 years has earned that. I don't like it, but it's the truth, and that is correct. Bob said, I don't agree that Georgia's going to roll FSU.
That's a fair point, and I have listened to stuff for 2 days now. There are a lot of valid points on that. But if Georgia's players all play, all right, and Kirby's pretty good like Saban about convincing kids to play, okay? This is your chance to show on this stage, to show the professional scouts what you can do, take out an insurance policy, let's go. All right. I don't – they are so upset. You think Florida State – not you, third person here. You think Florida State's upset about not getting in? Who have we heard the least from? Georgia.
Georgia didn't take care of business on the field.
Kirby, because he knows it's out of his control.
Right.
If I were Coach Harville, all right, at Florida State, I would probably have said more than he did.
Let me ask you this:
he took up for his players. I would do that all day long and fight because I'm with those guys.
Could Florida State have gotten in had they had more quote unquote style points, larger margins, lots of points?
The people talk about style points.
But in college football, that is important.
Yes, but look, but you're only allowed those points by the submission of the teams that you play against. It's not necessarily you're running up the score or anything. Basically, they're giving up, or style. That's a term that's often used when another team is beaten, just down and beaten. Oh, we laid it on them. Well, it's easy to kick. The old saying, "Kick the dog when he's down." I mean, we haven't heard anything out of Georgia, Lanny. I mean, very little. We've heard from everybody else. And what that tells me is in a situation like this, the ones that scream the loudest normally have the most to lose, and that's really in anything, right? Power-wise. Georgia's already in that. They've won 2 of the last 3 national championships, okay? They're still an elevated program, are likely going to go back next year. This is an opportunity for them to finish and say, we should have been in there.
That's exactly right. They took the high road.
And Bob made – I mean, and I have no problem coming on here. I have no problem coming on here and saying, you know what, I was 100% wrong. I'm sorry.
Here's the deal.
But that's what I really thought. I have no problem with that.
In my opinion, I think if they had Jarvis, isn't that the quarterback of Florida State? If they had him, if he had not gotten hurt, I still don't think they could handle Georgia.
And that's kind of what see, that's the problem. That's when I think Washington potentially could have been the one left out in this whole scenario. See, Washington got a pass. They're out on the West Coast. Oh, we're 12-0. Look what we did.
Conspiracy that they put the Pac-12 in, and because the ACC had been weak and the ACC had been there and the Pac-12 hadn't had representation in a while.
Think about this. Who tried to exit the ACC about a month ago?
I know. Florida State.
Well, yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yep. Andrew said the ACC is barely a Power 5, and that's correct. Joe said, Bob, and there's the issue. Very little can be claimed with certainty outside of Washington being unbeaten. That's correct, and especially for East Coast because we don't know. Chad said, Bob, FSU has more to gain by far, but will be interesting to see how many players decide not to play. Chad said, talk about player injuries. 2 words, Nick Foles.
Great.
There you
words.
Joe said, only way to remedy this is to do exactly what we fear and seems pretty well impossible. Carve out the power conferences, regionally divide them, and create a structure sort of like the NFL, which is exactly what we don't want to happen. I do, and I'll tell you that after the break. If that's the ACC has too many teams in the league, when the ACC expanded, they went the other way than the Big Ten and SEC did. The ACC effectively went to a conference that is basketball dominant and took schools that were in smaller markets. That is exactly right, and I've said that forever.
Why did they go to expanded play, in High School Athletic Association? Why did they start putting everybody in? The first thing we say is for the money. Okay, realistically, it had happened back in the early '80s. Okay. When my dad was coaching at Fred T. Ford, they were in the SD7. They lost 7-6 to Bessemer City and wiped the floor with everybody else. They had 3 kids out against Bessemer City and lost 7-6. They had to go to what's called the Division II playoffs, right? Bessemer City got the number 1 seed, all right? Even though Bessemer City got beat by somebody else, they beat Ford head-to-head. They were not the best team at the end of the year. They weren't. You know, when Brian Kimball doesn't play, and I know you remember Brian Kimball, when he doesn't play in a game, it drastically changes things, okay? So my point is this. This is why they went to trying to get the best 4 teams in instead of conference champions, okay? Personally and professionally, I've experienced this. My maiden baseball team in 2001, all right, beat Cherville. We were the only 2 1A schools in our conference. We beat them 12-2 and 12-4. Mopped them. We were much better. But during the season, we lost 4 of 6 conference games because one of my pitchers was down for 2 weeks. All right? And we got beat back-to-back with a scheduling snafu, but by Shelby, who was the 2A state champion in that league. We didn't get to go to the playoffs even though we mauled Cherville. Walked off. Mauled them. Okay? Cherville then goes to the 1A playoffs and doesn't lose a game and 10 runs everybody all the way through the state championship. Now, I could sit there all day long and scream, that's not fair, that's not fair. We didn't get it done on the field, right? That was under that criteria. Today, I say today, a few years later, that same scenario comes up. We walk through the whole thing and just, it wasn't even, Laney, it wasn't even close, okay? Shelby beat us like 5-4 and 4-3. And they had Brody Taylor, who was an incredible Division I Army. Yeah, he's a great kid. Well, he's a great kid. He's a great guy. I say kid. He's a great – I think he's Grant's age. Great guy. He is. And Brody's a tremendous player. But our team – my point is our team was very, very good, but we didn't get to go under those metrics.
Right.
Okay? So, I understand how people feel both ways. I get it. And it's all about opportunity. But then it becomes objective and subjective after that.
That's right.
And that's why this was created, because there was normally just – 3 really good teams in the 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th order. This year we had probably about 8. Yeah. Because you got to throw Ole Miss in there.
An 18 playoff would have been really nice. Joe said Alabama stinks, but he's mighty biased, LOL. Link said, let's hope Texas and Oklahoma get their butts kicked in the SEC. Milton said, I knew you were being sarcastic, Milton, about March Madness. Andrew said, one final thought on FSU. They may want to call their conference commissioners and thank him for voting against the expansion in 2024. Yep. That is correct. Yep. And if Alabama had been left out, what's his name, Stanky? Greg Stanky, or is he in the Big Ten? Whoever the commissioner is, whoever's in the commissioner in SEC, he would have been screaming about it. Biggest argument, Joe said, against FSU is them being 2 scores down to North Alabama with Travis. Yeah. But you're grasping at straws with teams, and I get it. Yeah. I get it. I do. Yeah. And Link says, like 4, who did Washington play? Exactly. Chase said, having injuries shouldn't weigh more than wins when a backup can come in and be better. He's not better. They were just able to survive, in my opinion. Washington got a bid because they were double-digit dogs against Oregon, and who they'd already beaten the season, and then in the championship game.
That's right. That's right. At home. That's right.
Bob said Georgia definitely fits the old saying, "Let the sleeping dog lie." You're right. Andrew said probably is they got 2 full game looks at FSU backup, and he wasn't better, not even close. There's a reason there are 1s and 2s on a team. Yeah. Richie said Bama barely beat South Florida, who was not good. You can go through all these scenarios for a while.
That is true. But
now,
much different.
To borrow a phrase from Andrew, we're going to drop this season for right now. It's been set. We'll talk about the outcomes. I want to talk about what does it look like next year with this scenario. Back in a minute.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily, or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home. First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver, or visit mooneyinsurance.com. Stifel Nicholas now has an office in your community. Stifel Nicholas is a full-service organization offering a wide range of investment vehicles and services. These include money market funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, retirement plans, and managed accounts, to name a few. Our financial advisors will sit down with you and help you tailor an investment plan, explaining strategies and investments which may help you achieve your personal goals. Call 4Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stifel Nicholas, member SIPC, and the New York Stock Exchange. And we're back. All right, quickly get to some things. I got to jump off here about 5 till. Anyway, let's see. Any other comments came in while I was gone? Joe said, Richie, totally agree. Also struggled with below 500 Arkansas and A&M, plus second half comeback against Tennessee. And that's before talking about 4th and 31. Andrew said, next year Liberty will have a chance to win a national championship. I've said, put some of those teams in there. You know, I'm anxious to see what the criteria is going to be. That's the thing. Milton said, off topic, what is going on with the sorry officiating in the NFL, calling roughing on an inbounds hit and on running quarterback, and then no plays for blatant DPI, defensive pass interference? Let's save that till Thursday. Tracy said, the Bama team that played FSU was not the same team that UGA played this weekend. If so, they would have lost by 50. Teams find their identities as they progress through the season. 2 new coordinators have adjusted and talent has adjusted. The other thing, Tracy, that you got to take into consideration, coaches like Nick Saban, like Jim Harbaugh, like Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, they know how to get a team ready for a huge, I guess, rivalry-type game.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it. You know, I always said there's certain coaches that you can give them 1 or 2 wins a year, period. If they can't do anything else, they're going to win it because of that. And you know, it's not any different anywhere else. Rich said the new conspiracy theory is Boo Corrigan, who is the AD at State and head of the college football committee, may have just worked State into the SEC when the ACC dissolves. Here's the problem, and somebody mentioned this before. I don't remember who it was, talking about, go to a regionalized thing. I've said this question, or I've put this out there before. Can you name, if you had to put it down on a piece of paper, let's say we went to 4 regional conferences just for football, 4 regional conferences with 10 teams in it. Can you name 40 teams that year in, year out could realistically compete for a national championship? You can't. Okay, let's back it up one. Let's back it up one. Let's take the NFL model just a little bit. Okay, let's go back and say, okay, we're going to go back to 8 teams in a conference, so that'd be 7 conference games, and out of those 7 conference games, you got to pay 4 of those against a common opponent, kind of like the NFL does. The AFC South plays the NFC East, so you got common opponents there, giving you 11 games. All right, I'll go back and ask my question again. Can you name or write down 32 teams that can compete for a national championship year in, year out? Let me go back to where we are right now, okay? If I look at the top 25, the top 25 can't do it. I'm going to tell you that the top 16 can't do it.
I agree 100%.
The top 16 right now.
100%.
Michigan,
100.
Washington, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Missouri, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU, Arizona, Louisville. That's your and Notre Dame. That's your top 16
How
teams.
is Penn State in that? And my thing is, Ole Miss,
Big team.
They would derail Oregon. I think the dismissive part of all of this is Sarkisian has a month, 3.5 weeks to dissect, and he's going to. You're going to see major surgery, all right, happen against Washington. Major surgery. Sarkisian, this is like, if I'm Washington, I'm like, I would have rather played Bama or Michigan first. All right. However, again.
But here's the deal. I still say it. I think I made my projection. I think it's Michigan and Texas. And it's going to be very, very close. I think Michigan has the edge, but we'll see. We'll see. That's my projection. Yeah. But go back to my question. Sure. There's the top 16 teams right now today, okay? And they can't all compete for a national championship.
Well, Notre Dame. Really? Now, I'm going to tell you who the sleeper and all that is with the 3 losses is Arizona. They nearly beat Washington and 2 other teams.
Yep.
We're talking about like this close, right? Oklahoma, are they better than Oklahoma State? Yeah. But unfortunately, they didn't get to go, right, because of the way that things are set up. But Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss is really good.
There's only a couple of other teams, okay, that could maybe be in there. Tennessee, Clemson, Oklahoma State.
No, I don't see it this year.
And that no. I'm just saying in that top 16 year in, year out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But after you get past that, folks, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to find teams.
You're always going to have 4 or 5. And, this is the thing about it. Liberty goes into the SEC. Okay, that discussion's done. It's done. You got to play that schedule every week. Let me tell you something.
And Liberty couldn't compete in the ACC.
I'm not dismissing the season they had. But this is based off experience, okay? And I'm talking about being involved in it. It's different getting up for a big game with Michigan, all right, and then not having to play those games the rest of the year, all right, or at Texas A&M, all right, than having to do that basically every week or, back-to-back weeks and kind of an easier week, back-to-back weeks and easier week.
All right.
That is the problem that we're running into. That's what happened with the failed experiment, Lenny, with Cincinnati. That all of this is caused, my thing was if the committee was going to put Washington in, then they had no justification other than saying Alabama's better than Florida State because Florida State didn't have a quarterback. What they could have done to say, look, we did it at one, we're going to do it at the other, is we're going to put one of the top 4 teams in, which is Georgia, and leave Washington and Florida State out. I don't know how you can call the Pac-12 a Power 5. I see nothing powerful about that.
Let me give you this.
Nothing.
Would you have been okay? And I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk what their ranks are. Okay, I'm just saying. Would you be okay if this was the 12-team pool, the 12 teams that were in the top 12 right now, which is Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Missouri, Penn State, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma? Now, the only one I know that you're going to start harping on is going to be LSU or maybe Arizona. 3 losses.
No, I'm good. I don't want them in at 3.
And here's the thing.
Based on next year's criteria. Yeah.
Some people say, well, Missouri's not one of those. Well, they played in the SEC and they held their own with 2 losses.
They were really good.
Yeah, much as I hate drinking water, but right there's your 12-team playoff. Now, here's the other thing. Now, and I told Juju this last night. If it were me, I would honestly rather be 8 teams or 16. I do not like first-round buys. And he said you got to deserve the ones that win. They deserve that bye. They do it in every division.
And we saw what happened in baseball and in football last year, baseball this year, and Major League Baseball by having a bye.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it takes a week. It's a lot more difficult. You do get out of rhythm. You do get out of the flow. I think everybody needs to take a mandatory 2 weeks to heal up, get all their players healthy, this, that, and the other. Do away with the conference championship games, win your league. All right, that would take care of a lot of the argument deserve and earn. If you win your league, you're in. If you win the league, whatever they deem the leagues that qualify for, you're in. You're in. Then, when you have players that are hurt, but you still got there and you get them demolished, then we're going to go back to the argument that we have today is we need the best teams in it, not the ones that finished, You're up by 60 points. You're undefeated. Okay, you're playing your last game of the season. You're up by 60. Okay? You leave your starters in because you're stupid. Okay? Not you. I'm just giving third person. And all of a sudden, you have 5 major players in the first series of the third quarter. Mm-hmm. Or let's just say the second series of the third quarter, they get hurt. Mm-hmm. You're still going to win the game likely. Mm-hmm. Are you one of the best teams if it's 5 of your 7 top players?
But we get out of this best team thing after this year.
But that's my point.
To me.
Then they're going to go back to it because they're going to have crappy playoff games just like we do in the NCAA tournament. Basketball is drastically different than football. Mm-hmm. And Chad Mullis played against him growing up. He knows what I'm talking about. Football and baseball are a little bit different. Basketball, anything can, and you can say that about anything, but anything can happen in basketball. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything, okay? Football is not so likely, and that's what we're going to run into, Lanny.
I don't want to miss this from Richie. Happy anniversary to the U.S. on the repeal of prohibition. Raise a glass and take a sip. I'll try to do that tonight, Richie. Joe, I'm going to come back to you right here. Joe says, let's talk about Michigan cheating allegations plus that diabetic schedule. I get that, but they played who was on the schedule, and they took care of business. As far as the cheating is concerned, every coach will get out there and say, we need radios in the helmets like the NFL does. And then when they get behind closed door with the AD, they say, do not do that because we steal signs too. There's nobody out there that's not doing it. Michigan got caught.
Well, I mean, think about it. We've had –
Doesn't make it right, but they just –
No, but listen, when – and that's a great point. Glad to bring that up. Okay, if someone is attending your game, what do you think high schools used to do?
We
all the time?
always sent a coach to scout the next week.
Exactly. This is like I can't believe anybody would do that. Are really? How deep? Not of course not our listeners, but how deep does one's head have to be in the sand to think that this hasn't been going like this? I can't believe. Okay, so nobility is at an all-time high. All right, here we go again. All right. We had to hear about civility in politics after the last election, after we had 8 years of just insaneness, all right? And now, all of a sudden, now we talk about we want to start teaching nobility in politics and civics, all right? This is crazy, all right? This is the thing about signs. If you put it out there, it's like on the internet, like on this show. You put it out there, then somebody's going to come back and try to get it. That's okay. That's that for being on that stage. That is what you get. Bobby Reynolds is the greatest sign stealer, Bobby Dale, of all-time history. Okay, I had to go to taps when we played them. All right, and then I had to go, no signs, we're just going to play today and make them try to steal our signs even though I'm not giving any. You have to adapt and adjust based on those things. And
if you don't, that's on you.
You can't hold up friggin' pictures of a penny head, you know, Abe Lincoln, you know, George Washington, you know, Niagara Falls, and then, you know, the Canes in Raleigh. You can't hold them things up and think somebody's not going to figure out what's going on.
No.
I just, you know, it's okay. It's okay. Change your signs. Stop whining about, well, they're stealing our signs. We can't. Well, you know what? You need to put in a system where they can't. Be better at what you do instead of just stagnant. It just
that's where you miss it. That's where you miss it right there.
I don't know, man.
Let's see. Now, Richie brings up a point quickly. Was Florida State punished because they had been so vocal about leaving the conference? Just think about it. Link said, who done the work on Michigan sign stealing? Ohio State? Ohio State was one of the ones that was verbal about it, and Ohio State had already come out before the game and said if Michigan wins, it's because they knew our signs. Well, then you should have changed them. Andrew said, I've seen people do it for rec league play. You're right, they do.
Of course.
Ronnie said next year when there are 12 teams, those games will be played on neutral field and they will be in bowl game, not the first round. The first round of games are supposed to be played at the home site of the higher-ranked team, is my understanding. Now, that could change.
Yeah, they need
that
to
could
do
change.
It. To Ronnie's point, they can make bowl games out of them in the final rounds. But that first round, like you said, will likely be played. And what that does is that gives incentive to that next 8 or that next 4 after the top 4, right? So to Ronnie's point, and thanks for bringing that up, that is going to be a major incentive as far as TV and revenues coming in, and for that university or campus, right? So that, you know, lot of good points on here.
I think it'll be a whole lot better. We didn't get into it last night. Juju and I were discussing high school sports schedules, and I already had football worked out in the start of basketball.
Yeah,
and
well, we need 4 sports seasons. Number one. Okay,
yeah.
We do, and it amazes me that we play basketball for 5 months, and the first thing you hear is, well, there's Thanksgiving and Christmas break.
Don't start till after Christmas.
I don't want to hear that crap, okay? Play football, all right? Start September 1. That way you get, you know, close to rid of the heat, all right, and all the issues that we're so concerned about, but yet continue to throw our kids out there in, right? Well, let's monitor. Let's don't let them practice, but they can play in this heat, but they can't practice in it, okay? So start September 1st, finish up at Christmas, okay? Cut the number again. Well, we're going to now, Laney. And 32 teams is too many to take playoffs. You need to take 16 from each side of the state because we're going to have 55.
Well, it will be.
32 is too many. 32 is too many.
16 from each side, though.
No. I know it's still too many. 32 out of 55 is still too many. It's no different than it is
that's
now.
less than what it is now.
But that's only because it's compressed. It's really not.
I know.
So the point is, you know, if you're going to compress the leagues or the classifications, then let's make it a little harder to compete in that classification on the next stage. That way you increase the quality of play instead of just getting out there and everybody running free and throwing their hands up. And let's get out of the participation mode if we're going to play sports, okay? Outside of rec.
Ronnie says if on a home team, will the gate money be split?
No,
Don't forget it's all about you're going to get your gate money.
TV
money.
Yeah, TV, but not
and
the gate.
Tracy brings up a great point. Football, NASCAR, if you ain't cheating,
you
ain't trying. There you go. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back in the morning. Juju will join me, and we'll see you then.
Yep.